Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the White Belt MMA podcast, and it's an absolute pleasure to have on the show today Joe Giannetti, who is the Cage Titans lightweight champion, and he actually just fought last weekend and won in round 4 in TKO. So, Joe, again, like I told you off camera, sorry I hit you up a week after you fought, but how you feel, my man? How you feeling?
I feel really good. I'm actually recovering really fast. Stitches come out in a few days. I actually think these stitches are almost could come out today, but I just want to be careful with them. They said wait a week, so we'll take them out Sunday. But yeah, everything's recovering really good. I feel healthy, and I think that the only thing left I got to do, I got to get an MRI on my hand. It's not broken. We already know. I got an X-ray. Just got to make sure there's no ligament damage, and then it's just a matter of getting right back into the gym. I'm already healthy. It's just getting back in there.
No, yeah, 100%. And I think I saw a funny thing on your story saying that people were giving you weird looks in the supermarket. So please get, tell us a little bit about that. Cause did you have to tell them, be like, yo, yeah, I was just at a fight last weekend, or you're just
the Target down the street from my house, there's just too many people. I just kind of would laugh and put my head back down. Monday, I was the colors changed a little bit, but it was more purple on Monday. So they were all looking at me like, what the hell? And then there was like people with their kids, and they were like, okay, that dude's a serial killer. And I was just awkwardly waving. One kid actually came running out of an aisle and bumped into me. And I smiled at him, and he looked mortified and took off running. And, but then today, the Dunkin' Donuts, right, a 30-second drive from my house, I went to go get a coffee. And the girl I always see there, she's like, hey, you getting into some trouble? And I was like, no, I'm actually an MMA fighter. I was like, I just fought on Saturday. And then I was like, I won though. And she was like, oh, okay. She's like, I actually love watching MMA. I just would have never guessed that you did that. And I was like, yeah, I get that a lot.
That's awesome, man. I mean, and then plus, it kind of leads me to my first question, right? It's for you, how did you get into combat sports? Because for some people, right, their family are into it, so they just kind of have to do it. Other people stumble upon it. So for you, what was your story?
I stumbled upon it, as far as the rest of my family, nobody would ever tell you that I was going to be a fighter. My family all the time still says it. I was in third grade, and I was at a buddy's house. I used to hang out with this kid down the street all the time. And one day his dad would just had fights on. I don't know if it was live at the time or a rerun, but it was Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin. And it was just I watched it in passing real quick, and then I kind of sat down and watched, and it was magic. I understood immediately, this is a fight, but just the way Anderson moved, it didn't have a care in the world. I was like, I want to do that. I was like, I want to be able to do what he does. To me, it was an action movie. So I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then, nothing ever came of that. But then whenever I was over at my buddy's house, I would watch the fights with his dad because, my family never really watched it. So I didn't know where, how. I was a kid. And then growing up, I was a hefty kid. I was a bigger kid. I got picked on a lot. And so then, unfortunately, our school systems don't exactly do what they need to sometimes. So I would defend myself. And I used to get into fights all the time against these bullies. And I had gotten into a lot of fights by the time I was in high school. And my junior year comes around, or my senior year comes around, and, the teacher hits you with what are you going to do when you graduate? And everybody hits all these stereotypical answers. And I was like, I think I'm going to be a pro fighter. And she was like, what? And I was like, I mean, I get into fights all the time, but these guys get paid to do it. I might as well. And, I got buddies that are and I wrestled in high school, and I was absolutely atrocious. So I had buddies that were like, you can't even wrestle. You're going to go fight someone. And I'm like, well, I do pretty good when I get into fights. So let's make some money. And my English teacher was like, I mean, if you can make a career out of it, go for it. I would never guess that'd be your answer.
No, yeah, big time, man. And like you said, you said that you wrestled a little bit before, and you said that you weren't that good. And I was actually watching one of your previous media scrums saying that you were 0-30
my junior year.
Yeah. So dude, how do you get past that, right? Because most people, right, you go 0-30 one year and you're like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. But for you, dude, you're one of those people. You're those people that they say is yo, if you keep on going, you keep on putting the good work, you'll improve, things will get better. So for you, what was your mindset throughout the whole season and getting better?
As far as wrestling, my senior year, I was very I knew I'd be out of high school soon. I knew I'd be training MMA full time. So I used that season, obviously, to do my best, but I didn't know much about training MMA, but I would try and stay on top when I wrestled, and I would try and practice things that I would do in MMA. And, I would ride legs and I would do things I saw other fighters do, because I was like, okay, when I get to MMA, I can transfer this and use it. My junior year, I was wrestling at whatever the weight class was. It changes every year. I think it was 82 or 85. And I was still focused on losing weight. So my freshman year, I wrestled at heavyweight. My sophomore year, I wrestled at 215. Damn. And then my junior year, I wrestled at 182 or 85. And then my senior year, I wrestled at 170. So my junior year, when I got smoked by literally everybody, even people like I lost a freshman that barely knew how to wrestle. I just couldn't get it to click. I knew that like wrestling was still so hard and I was losing so much weight that like, that's just where I was in my journey. And I just accepted it. I wasn't here to be the best wrestler in New England. I was here to lose weight, and I was still kind of heavy. And I was like, I got plenty of time to lose that weight, which I did. By my senior year, I wrestled at 170, and I didn't know anything about MMA. So I always thought I'd fight at 170. So I was like, okay, like this is what I got to get used to. And then I can start practicing stuff when I do MMA. And then when I got into MMA, I realized I was like, oh, I'm a 55er. I was like, okay. And then I just went down to there.
Yeah, big time, man. And like you get past that wrestling, you said it, like you're working your way like every little bit for that MMA journey, for the start of that MMA journey. So you step foot into the MMA gym, like, first, how'd you stumble upon that MMA gym? And then two, how was your first, time sparring in there? Because I know it's, always something different for like, the grappler that goes into like a full on sparring thing. Like for me, right? Like I like doing jujitsu. And then the first time I was like, one of my boys was, hey, let's do some MMA sparring. I realized I couldn't just be chilling in half guard for like the whole round. I'll be getting just pummeled. So for you, what was your experience?
So my high school didn't really support our wrestling team too much. So we had a new coach every season. I loved all of my coaches. They unfortunately didn't treat our coaches well. So our coaches were like, I can't afford to come do this for nothing. So it was a new coach every year. And my senior year, we had a new coach. His name is Justin Burrell. He's currently always in my corner when I fight, has been since I was an amateur, but he's a pro MMA fighter. One day we couldn't practice in the cafeteria because the cheerleaders had to practice and we got bumped by them. So he told the athletic director, he was like, listen, you guys got a spare bus out back. It was like one of those like charter buses. He was like, let me take one to my gym. It's 5 minutes up the road. I'll take the kids, run the wrestling practice, and then their parents can pick them up there or I'll bring them back. They said, yeah. We ended up going to South Shore Sport Fighting. And we walked in and I was like, okay, like this could be it. I was like, I know nothing about training, anything. I was like, this could be where I train to fight. So we ran our wrestling practice and then they offered us all that we could stay for the jiu-jitsu class. So I did. And I was like, yeah, like this is it. This is the spot. So I did that jiu-jitsu class. And then I didn't do another jiu-jitsu class until after I graduated high school. I graduated. Justin ran a wrestling program all summer long at South Shore. I went to that. And then after that, I got into jiu-jitsu at South Shore and I was training there every day, once a day for like 2 months. And then I was like, okay, I should start getting into striking and MMA. So I started practicing that. My very first MMA round ever, I remember one of our guys was getting ready for an amateur title and Bill was like, oh, he's fighting a wrestler. So just go in there and give him some MMA rounds. And I was like, I know nothing about striking. Like I know striking, but I physically can't do it. And he was like, it's okay. He's fighting a wrestler anyways. Just try to take him down, try to get on top. I'm like, all right, sure. So I go in off the rip, shoot a blast double. I was like, I'm just going to put him on his ass and call it a day. Yeah. And I got in on his legs and I was like, oh, this kid's going for a ride. And then I woke up looking at the lights and he was like tapping my shoulder and he's like, you good? And I was like, yeah, why? And he's like, you just got choked out. And I was like, what? And he was like, I'm one of those people, I don't know if you've ever seen it. Some people, when they get choked out, their body like twitches a little bit. I twitch in my sleep too, but I twitch when I get choked out. Yeah. So they're all looking at me like I just got murdered. And I'm like, oh. And they're like, yeah, you're done. And I was like, no, I can keep going. They're like, no, you're done. Get out of the cage. And I was like, all right. So then I just sat there and watched everybody else spar with the most confused look on my face. Like, I was definitely on his legs. What did I miss? I shot right into a guillotine. I just had no idea what it was.
Oh, man. Oh, that's tough, dude. That's tough. So like for, from that experience, right? Like you said, like it probably just kind of fueled the fire even more. You're like, man, I don't want to ever get put on a guillotine ever again. So for you, like building up to that first fight and then you get that first fight, right? Your first amateur fight. Tell us how that came about, right? Because I know for some people, a lot of nerves, other people, cold killers. So for you, what was your experience?
So I told my coach from day one, I said, I want to be a UFC fighter. I'll do whatever I have to be a UFC fighter. And
Yeah.
as a coach, like you hear that from every 17-year-old kid that walks in the gym. But he was like, all right, like here's our classes, here's our fight team, like train. And I trained harder than some of our pros from day one, before I was even technically an amateur. And I remember he used to always say, he was like, I'm never going to come to you and say, it's time for you to fight. You're going to ask me, and then you'll get a fight when I find someone that I think you can beat. Not like I can, but like someone that is a good fight that you can beat. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And I remember I asked him, I said, hey, you already know I want to fight. Like, what's it going to take? I had never picked up a weight in my life at this point. So I went from being overweight to skin and bone. I was like the weakest. And he was like, listen, when you can bench 205 pounds, come talk to me. So I started hitting the weights. I was benching, I was deadlifting, I was squatting. And it took me a little under a year, and I got up to 205. And I remember we went to a media day for Cage Titans, and I was running late because I went to the gym to lift. I got 205 for the first time. And then I went down to the media day, and I grappled with a couple of the local amateur 55ers, and I tapped them all. And I ran up to him, and I was like, I benched 205 this morning. I tapped out these 3 guys. These guys are already fighting. Like, I'm ready to fight. Find me somebody. And he was like, all right, I will. He ended up finding someone. I fought that August. And I remember that everybody was like, are you sure? Like, this kid can fight? Like, are you sure? Like, you're going to get this kid a fight? And he was like, yeah, he'll be fine. And I fought, and I ended up, everything went out the window, street fighter me. Like, I went out there and brawled. And then in the 3rd round, I ended up getting dropped. Like, I got hit, and I woke up looking at the lights, and I was like, oh, I messed up. Like, I lost. And I looked down, and I have the guy in a triangle, and I was like, what is going on? And I end up switching it to an arm bar, and he taps with like 10 seconds left. And it was just like such a crazy experience. And from that point, I was like, okay, I need to learn as much as I can so I don't ever get dropped again.
No, dude, and like those moments, right? Like you said, it's like you just woke up, and then you don't know where you're at, but then you just magically got the guy in a triangle, and you transition to like an armbar. For you, like, dude, don't you ever like sit back and like remember that, and you're like, damn, man, like you can easily make that into a movie, have like the full-on Rocky montage and everything.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
for sure. I think about it all the time. Like, out of everything that's happened in my career, that's one of my favorite memories, because I remember getting out of the cage. I remember Cage Titans gave out their Submission of the Night award. So my very first amateur fight, I got Submission of the Night. And I remember all night long, everybody's asking me. I was an 18-year-old kid. They're all like, how did you set it up? How did you set it up? How'd you set it up? I was like, I have no idea. I was like, I remember my coach said, you're brawling with him. You need to give him time, 30 seconds, just move around, let him feel at your range, and then you could try and take him down. I said, all right, cool. Well, when I went in there, I did the exact opposite. I got in his face, but I was slipping punches, and I was like, oh, I'm good. And I'll never forget, I slipped, and then I rolled under, and as I picked my head up, I saw his fist like right here. And I was like, oh no. But I knew it was a good shot because it didn't hurt, but I felt it. And then like that falling feeling you get like when you're in bed, it was me falling straight back onto my back. And then I opened my eyes and saw the lights, and I was like, oh, I messed up. And then I heard gurgling, and I looked down, he's in a triangle, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but we'll worry about it later. So I just like kept going.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Like I said, pure Rocky movie right there. Just, clip it up. Like if you ever find like the clip, just do it.
There's a video of it somewhere. I've never seen it. I've seen all of my fights except for that fight. I've never watched it back once. I don't know what it looks like. But I know it's out there somewhere.
No worries. If anything, I'll probably do the work. I'll be like, I'm gonna find it, and then I'm gonna send it to you and be like, yo, man, this is your chance. Put the Rocky montage music on there. But yeah, dude. So you tear through the amateur scene, you turn pro, and then you get the call for the Ultimate Fighter, man. So, like you said, you knew you wanted to be a fighter. You knew you wanted to get signed with the UFC, and then they finally start calling. So for you, what was the feelings like? So it's like, I can just imagine, like, you're probably just overwhelmed with emotion.
It just felt like time was on my side. Like it felt like that was how it was supposed to be. And it's just like, and that's what used to carry me. Like I call it like the first half, but like the beginning of my pro career, like I knew I wanted to be a fighter. That's why when I sucked at wrestling, I was like, I'm going to lose weight. And then when I was decent at wrestling, I was like, I'm going to get better as I'm fighting. Like, it just felt like it was my storybook. Like, this is how it's going to go. And like you said, like my Rocky movie, like this, like getting to the Ultimate Fighter was like the way up on my point of the movie. And like, we're going to get here soon. And obviously looking back, that's not how it went. But as of recent, I've realized that every bump in the road is still part of that movie. Like it's still part of that story. And back before tough, I was like, no, it's just all up, up, up. Like that's just not how it goes.
Yeah. No, yeah, dude. But like you said, though, like, even though like it didn't turn out the way that you thought it would be, like you eventually, I mean, if anything, maybe that show just brought that connection for you at AKA, like, through
100%.
DC and everything like that.
And if that's all I ever get out of that show, I'm cool with it because now I train at the best gym on the planet.
No, yeah, dude. And like, training at AKA, man, like tell us about that. Because, I'm also from New England. So like, I always hear stories about like, people from New England, like traveling to other places. And then you travel into AKA, which is in the craziest, I was actually just watching your vlogs, but like, you traveling in like, this big, like, RV, traveling, I don't know how many miles to California. So first tell us about how you came up with the idea of driving across country to AKA. Because most people would be like, I'll just book a flight. But for you, you're like, nah, I'm gonna take it hardcore and take an RV to AKA, and then tell us a little bit about experiences at training at AKA.
So honestly, like, believe it or not, and like I've broken this down for a couple of my friends and my girlfriend's family because they don't believe me when I first say it. It is cheaper, maybe not initially to convert because I converted a short bus. That's expensive, but trip for trip, it is cheaper to drive a RV/car/short bus across the country, live in the parking lot, and just train than it is to fly, get a rent-a-car, and get an Airbnb or even a hotel. It is cheaper to drive cross country, and people don't believe me. But if you break it down, and this is the vague breakdown I give people, is the flight is like way cheaper. So gas both ways for this trip, $2,400 off the rip. A flight both ways. This time I could have got, I think it was like almost $400. So way cheaper. But then you get the Airbnb for however many weeks I'm there. So we'll say 8 weeks. That's like a little over $2,000 off the rip, depending on what you're staying at. That's if you get like an apartment, but like a lot of places are just giving you a room. And I would like to bring my dog. So that's usually not an option. Then you get to the rent-a-car. The rent-a-car is like $1,000, but then they have their daily fee. They have their insurance. That turns into $4,000 real fast. So just vaguely with no little expenses, I'm already saving $2,000 off the rip just by doing it the way I do it.
Yeah.
And, I spent more than $2,000 on converting the bus and stuff. But after 2 trips already, it's almost evened out to where I'm spending the same exact amount of money with building and buying the bus, which is something that people don't think of. It's like, yeah, buying the bus was expensive. Converting it was expensive. But with what I would have spent flying out, I'd be in just about the same spot. After this 3rd trip, the bus will have paid for itself. So that's how that happened. And also, I have animals. So my girl's a teacher, so she's gone all day. And I've had Fraser, he turns 10 in May. I've had him since he was 5 months old. He's my responsibility. We've been through everything together. So he's super clingy to me. Like, there was a small point in time, like a whole summer where I was like homeless. We slept in my old pickup truck. So like he's been through it all. And if I leave, because I left for the Ultimate Fighter, you could see it in him. He gets very sad, and he's an energetic dog, even for being 10 years old, but he's very less energetic when I'm gone. So it's like my responsibility. Like if I got to convert a bus, take my man with me, then I'm converting a bus and I'm taking my man with me. So that's what we did. And then AKA is it's just a blessing. It's just the best way I could put it. Literally, everybody says like, oh, my team's the best. My gym's the best. Like it's the best gym in the world with the best guys at the world, with multiple champions from multiple organizations. Some of the best specialists in boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking, they're all in one place, and they all care about you. And if you're putting in the work and making the sacrifices, they care, and they tell you what you need to hear, which is like my biggest thing is I don't like when people just blow me. I don't like, especially if they don't believe it. I hate when people are like, your striking looks great. And then they're like, oh, he's going to get knocked the fuck out. But I also hate people that actually just like don't know. And there's, oh, you look great. You're a killer. You're the best. Da, da, da. I'm like, no. You need to tell me what I'm doing wrong or what I suck at. And you need to say it from a place of care and a place from like, I want you to improve. Not just like, because I've had people tell me like, oh, you're doing this wrong. But it's almost like condescending. And it sounds like they're just like almost enjoying that I suck at something. Whereas like, I go to AKA and my buddy Duran off the rip, he's on my ass all the time. He's like, yo, your wrestling sucks. Like we need to work on A, B, C, and D. And like to some people, they kind of look at it like, damn, like he's kind of a dick. And I'm like, no, he loves me like a brother and he loves seeing me win fights and he cares and he wants me to win. So he's making sure, like, you want to win, you got to do this, this, and this. And I love that. That's what I need. I thrive on that. And I think I get that from wrestling. You know, my wrestling coaches were never easy on me. Even when they knew I was this 5'8", 230-pound fat kid, they were like, no, work, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And as long as you are doing it for me, I will listen and I will respond well. Cause like Bob Cook, he used to be out there all the time and he would always shit on me when he would watch me spar. He'd be like, you don't, cause I don't spar hard. I can't turn it on in the gym. And people are finally starting to realize that, like, how do you fight like this, but you spar and get your ass kicked? And like Bob would watch me spar and he would be like, he would yell all this shit. Like, you need to throw like you're fighting. You need to be more intense. You need to be more, just more energy. And like, then he would tell me shit I'm doing wrong technically. And I would just be like, thank you. And he'd be like, for yelling at you? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, I need that. I need you to be telling me you're doing this wrong. If you just told me all the good shit, I wouldn't feel like I need to get better.
No, yeah, big time, man. And like, said, like, that's awesome, man. And I do have to ask you though, you think you'll ever get some of those AKA guys that come down to Massachusetts, enjoy some of the cold weather? Cause they're living it out there, man. Warm weather.
They hate the cold, bro. They hate the cold. Like, it's the devil. Like, I remember when I left. So I left for the Ultimate Fighter. Not a lot of people know this. I was on the plane for the Ultimate Fighter when the UFC was in Boston and DC was fighting Volkan Ozdemir.
Yep.
And Stipe was fighting Ngannou.
Yep.
And I was on the plane and I remember getting to Vegas and being like, damn, you guys couldn't have waited another day so I could at least watch the UFC in my hometown. Yeah. And I remember when I eventually got on Team DC and I met DC and Kane and all them, I told them I was from Boston and they were like, fuck Boston. It is so cold. I was like, that wasn't even one of our coldest nights. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, that was like a decent night. Like, I had a normal hoodie on.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, they're like 3 layers deep. Like, no, I'm never going back to Boston in the winter. They hate the cold.
Oh man, that's crazy. I mean, imagine if they were stuck here during the blizzard that we had here a couple of weeks ago. Man.
Oh, they would have been screwed. I was telling them about it before I left California. I was like, I got to leave a day early so I could beat this storm. They were like, what storm? I was like, I got like 3 feet of snow waiting for me. They were like, fuck that.
Yeah, man, I'm dead ass, dude. I almost tore my ACL one of the, like, especially like just slipping on, like when I got like real icy and everything like that. It was bad, man. I was just like, I don't know. I guess God was on my side, but that ACL is still intact. But
yeah, I got caught in the end of the storm on the drive home, and I was like, some of these people still don't know how to drive. I was like, how do you live here?
Yeah, dude, it's tough. But yeah, man, to bring it back to your career, man. So, your last 2 fights, man, W's. When you won the title, it was legitimately like I think I've heard you say it. It was probably one of your best performances. Just like the way you're just, in and out. You hit the dude with the knee as he was coming in. So, again, how'd you feel going in there? Like you were like, okay, this is like the most ready I've been for a fight, especially knowing that it was like your first camp at AKA, or yeah, just it was your typical like fight nerves. So like, what was your experience there?
There was not a lightweight on the planet that could have beaten me that night that I won the Cage Titans belt. I was just the greatest weight cut ever, the greatest mental space ever, the greatest preparation ever. It was just, I don't like to throw around the word perfect a lot. It was a perfect preparation for a perfect performance. I enjoyed every moment in it, but like I said, I knew that night there was nobody that could beat me. I was prepared for a tough fight and I was prepared for anything that could have gone wrong, but I knew that no matter what happened, my hand was going to get raised. And it's crazy to say that there's still a lot in my arsenal that I haven't let out yet.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear, dude. And then it's like you have the fight that you just had last weekend, absolute war. And then like that little clip that you posted on social media, it was pretty cool because like it was like you're like making the OGs proud. And it's like you and him just in the clinch, just going at it. So like, from watching your vlogs, you said that like, it wasn't the best preparation, because obviously you got hit with like a bunch of stuff like during camp. But for you, like, how does it feel knowing that you got through all of that and still put on a great performance, even though you think it wasn't your best, but you still got the W and you're still the Cage Titans champ?
It feels like a superpower. I was actually talking to my coach's wife this morning because she was saying like, good job. Like, I know you went through a lot of stuff. And we were talking about this and I told her, I was like, it feels like a superpower because something I've struggled with in the past was like, if I don't get the best preparation every time, like I can't perform to my fullest. And like, I was forced to fight that off. Like before I walked out and I was in the locker room, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. What matters is getting your hand raised. What matters is doing what you have to do to get your hand raised. And before, like a few years ago, if I had a camp like that, I would be in shambles. I probably would have gone out, and I have gone out years ago and performed horribly. And then I'll sit in the locker room and cry, not because I lost, but because I know that like my capability is this, and I performed like down here. And it's just, and that's what hurts the most. And, you know, especially after taking that year off from fighting to just focus on training and improving, that's something that I promised myself. No matter what, I will always go out there and do my best. I will do everything that I can in my power to win that fight. So win or lose, I'll be happy. And if I had went out there and lost, obviously be like, damn, I lost, but I wouldn't have been mad at myself. I wouldn't have blamed my shitty preparation because I was going out there and doing the best with what I had, which was like the motto of that entire camp, making the best of what we had, because we didn't have much, but we had to make do. And, you know, like I said, I didn't get to fight the fight I wanted, but I knew what kind of fight I needed to fight, and I was ready to do it.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So yeah, man, again, Joe, you know, I appreciate you taking the time, but I got, you know, several, you know, two last questions. One, kind of to bring it back to the RV, is it to be able to survive a third trip? Because I know you were saying in the vlogs, you're like, I don't know if this trip, you know, this RV is gonna make it for the third trip, or I'm gonna have to go for a little small van. So what's the deal with that?
We gotta take it to my buddy's shop. There's a couple things. I got a little, not as bad as usual, but I got a little maintenance list, and they're gonna look it over and they'll give me some prices. If it's expensive and it's not really worth getting fixed, then we'll probably strip out the main stuff that we need and then toss it into like a new van and convert that. But you know, that comes with its own expenses and stuff. Yeah. And if it's, you know, if it's a little expensive and it's like, hey, if you're just trying to get one last hurrah out of it, put this into it, it'll make it, you'll be fine. So that'll probably be, I would like to do that personally, just because like starting the whole process of rebuilding and converting a van is just like, it's a summertime thing. It's something that, you know, I can crack a beer and spend, that's what I was doing. I was getting drunk and spending 8 hours a day building that bus. Me and my girlfriend's dad, literally we would go buy a 30 rack. It was 90 degrees outside, and we would just crack open a beer and get to work. And we were working like 10 in the morning to like 9 o'clock at night. Like we were there every day. And he's a state trooper. So he was working these shifts, and he'd be like, hey, I get home at 6 o'clock this morning, give me like 4 hours, and then come by the house and we'll start working on it. And we were like putting in hours on this damn bus. So like to do something right now, and like when it's cold out, not really looking forward to doing that. But you know, if we get one more hurrah out of it, you know, we win that fight, big opportunities on the doorstep, then we'll look at it and we'll talk about it. And, you know, and the other thing, like I've talked about with my girlfriend, is like, you know, say I win my next fight at Cage Titans, and then like the Contender comes calling, or the UFC, but they're like, hey, the fight's in 3 weeks. That'll be one of those things where it's like, okay, I have to fly out. I have to stay. I'll sleep on Duran's couch if I have to, and I'll get a rent-a-car. So like, we'll make do with what we got, like we always have. But hopefully if I can get one more hurrah out of the Skeletor bus, and then I'll sell it with all the shit in there and make some money back to invest more into my career, then we'll do that.
Yeah, and like, you know, does that kind of take into account with like, you know, when you want to have your next Cage Titans fight? Like, would it probably be around the summertime, or, you know, it depends?
I was honestly still trying to get on the February 25th card. I know Bond won't be 100% for that. I don't know. It's going to be a while before he fights again. I do owe him his rematch. And I made it a point to his team. I said, don't rush your recovery to fight me. I'm going to fight you when you're healthy. I'm also not going to wait around though. As soon as I can, I'll be back in the cage. But February 25th won't be happening. Cage Titans wanted me on their April 2nd card. But like I said, finances, I don't have the money to go to AKA for 2 months. And the big thing that people underestimate while I'm gone is I don't work. I make zero income, and I still have all my bills at home, my rent, my electric, all that crap. So it's like I'm paying 2 sets of bills when I'm in California. So that's something that I got to save money up for and make some money, get some new sponsors. I always give it a couple weeks before the fights, because like when I get sponsors and then I fight, and then like 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, you want to sponsor me again? They're like, didn't you just fight? And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm not fighting for a few months. I just want to get ahead of it, because otherwise I'm like 2 days before leaving, I got no money, and I'm like scouring for the sponsors, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll write you a check tomorrow. And it's like, well, I'm leaving tomorrow. And I hate making people feel like they're rushed. But 99.9% sure June 4th, Cage Titans will be my next fight. Whether it's Jacob Bond or not, I don't know. If he's healthy and he says, yeah, let's do it, we'll do it. If not, I'm not waiting for him. I'm going to fight someone else. And then whenever he's healthy, I'll fight him, unless, you know, Dana comes calling, or the Contender, or something happens.
Sounds good, man. Looking forward to it, man. Hopefully, I can get you for another interview, before your next fight.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, man. Because the New England buddies, man.
We gotta stick together,
bro.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But yeah, man. So before you go, man, do you want to plug in all your social media so everyone watching can go and follow you?
Yeah, for sure. I keep it super simple for you guys because my name is a pain in the ass. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitch. It's at Giannetti MMA. Giannetti MMA. There's 2 N's and 2 T's. That's what messes up with everybody. But it is the same on all social media. So if you get it on one way, you get it on everything else. My YouTube is just Joe Giannetti. Give me a follow. Come hang out in the Twitch streams. We were actually just streaming right before I got on here with you. We were all vibing. My thumb's a little banged up. It's sprained. So like I can't play COD. So I was like playing Pokemon and just hanging out with everybody.
There you go.
That's, you know what I mean? It's honestly, people come for the vibe more than the gameplay. Like we're all just chilling. So if you guys are interested in something like that, go ahead. If not, just give me a follow wherever you please. But we will be back June 4th.
Sounds good, brother. Looking forward to it. Once again, thank you. And to everyone watching, peace.